Today on Behind the Visor I am joined by British racing driver Jamie Greene. He's currently racing for Audi in the DTM Championship. However, earlier on in his career he raced in such series as the European Formula 3 Series, and in 2004 he beat such drivers as Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg and Robert Kubica to claim the 2004 European Formula 3 title. Since then he's went on to race in DTM with Mercedes, and most recently since 2013 he's raced for Audi in the Championship. He's came close to winning the Championship on a number of occasions, 4 times, twice in second and twice in third. So on today's episode of Behind the Visor, I'm going to understand more about Jamie Greene, understand a little bit more about what I should be doing as I go into my first motorsport race in 2019. So today's Behind the Visor is with British racing driver Jamie Greene. Hello everyone, today we are here joined by Audi DTM driver Jamie Greene. So we're going to talk about your career a little bit and then maybe a bit of advice about me getting into a race car later on. So growing up, did you have an idol getting into motorsport? Was there someone you looked up to as a kid?
No, not really. I wasn't a sort of normal motorsport fan as a kid. I got involved in racing through stock car racing, so like oval racing in England. My dad used to race in stock cars, so I used to go and watch him before, I guess I was 7-8 years old, something like that. And so I was more interested in that kind of racing than I was in, circuit racing, like where I've ended up making a career for myself. So it was probably like a stock car in Star that I was more in awe of than Nigel Mansell or Ayrton Senna or something like that, because I wasn't really following Formula One until I got into karting, so in, let's say, the mid to late 90s.
So was karting an easy progression then? If you were a fan of oval racing, was karting sort of the way you were going to get in, or maybe like autocross or something like that? Or?
Well, I started racing in stock cars just because that was my family background, and then I moved into karting when I was 12. That was quite a big change. I'd been racing a front-wheel drive Mini on ovals, and then I was obviously driving a rear-wheel driven kart. So it was very different. But I enjoyed the karting because it felt very quick, because you sit so low down and the grip level's high. I think the stock car background was good for me because I was used to sliding. I raced on dirt and tarmac, so I was used to the car moving around, and whenever it was wet I was normally quite quick in a go-kart. So I think it was actually good experience, but the transition to karting was quite different to what I was used to as a 12-year-old. But I got up to speed really quickly actually, and in my first season of national championship karting I finished second, so I was a little bit of a late starter. Some guys were starting at 8, I started at 12 but in karting, but I had 2 years of racing experience, which also was useful, but in a different way.
So my next question was, how hard was it to balance sort of, I guess, schoolwork at the time as a kid and racing at the same time? Because I guess both are very time intensive.
Yeah, I neglected my education, to be honest, because I struggled a bit in school. Academically I wasn't particularly good, and I just loved my racing. I put all my energy and effort into my racing and looked forward to the weekends, and I wouldn't want my kids to do the same thing, but luckily I made a career out of it. If I hadn't have made a career out of driving, then I wouldn't be in great shape for getting a job. So I think I was fortunate that I made a career out of racing. I did miss some days because we did like national championship karting as a 13-year-old. We had test days on a Friday. The race weekend started on a Friday, so I'd often miss days of school to be at the races. So it is a compromise, definitely.
So you obviously had quite a lot of success in karting before making a step into, what was it, Formula Renault at the time?
Yeah.
Was that quite a big step? Because obviously, even though a go-kart's very quick, it's very different to having a lot of downforce like a single-seater.
Yeah, although I would say, because I raced karts in Europe, I did European and World Championship karting, the grip level you get or you got at that stage, I don't know if it's the same now, but we used very soft tyres. Raced in hot conditions where there was a lot of rubber on. We'd be at the circuit from maybe Wednesday testing, so there'd be a lot of rubber on the track in hot weather, massive amount of grip, and you needed to be able to adapt to that high grip level in karting, which was already like a change from racing in England. So then when I went into a car which had downforce, I was already prepared for high grip driving style, and that I think helped me get on the pace straight away in a car with wings from the beginning. I never did Formula Ford, and it wasn't really a problem. I was able to win races in my first year of car racing, so I think I put that down to a good karting foundation, which prepared me really, really well for single seaters.
Did you find it? I mean, you said you didn't find it that hard, but did you find it too hard to make a name for yourself in the world of motorsport? Because there are, I guess, thousands of people that want to be a motorsport driver, but only a few that make it.
Yeah, I mean, when you get older, you're a bit more realistic, and you look back at it and you think, when I was 17, the chances weren't looking that good. I look back now and I think, why did I ever think I was going to get anywhere in racing? And I never really doubted myself. I think I'm just fortunate that I was born with a talent for driving and the sort of natural interest to learn and want to understand and want to improve. And I think it's that mixture of ability and application which has made me sort of stand out or be more successful than most. So fortunately that's just natural. It's not a massive effort. It's something I did always want to be dedicated to my racing, and I made quite a clear choice that that's what I wanted to put my effort into, and I was never really distracted by other things, other sports or whatever, and I think that's why I've succeeded.
So after winning the European F3 title, was there ever an opportunity to go into the GP2? Because that was just coming in at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was an opportunity, but it would have required some funding. And I had a contract with Mercedes, and they were prepared to put me in a DTM car and pay me a salary. So my management people who had found the budget were more interested in me becoming a professional when there was an offer on the table. So it was more of a joint decision that was the sensible choice. I think looking back, GP2 would have been a good thing to try, but there's always that risk of, if you don't succeed in GP2 in that instance, you could end up without any job. So the fact that I had a concrete offer there to race and be a professional was sort of hard to turn down. And rather than chase the Formula One dream, we decided to take the professional racing driver offer. And I was still involved with McLaren because there was a link between Mercedes and McLaren at that stage. So I was still linked to F1 and doing some work with McLaren as well.
Was that European F3 title sort of the standout moment in your career? I mean, you've won obviously a lot of races in DTM. Do any of those eclipse that?
Well, I think it's hard for a one-off race to eclipse a championship. And also the competition in Formula 3 at that stage was really high. So I would say, if you take a whole year, whole season, that was the most impressive one of my career. So yeah, I think as a season, that was the standout one for me.
So my next question was going on to me getting into a car and racing for myself. Do you find fitness a massive part of motorsport now? So I guess the cars are very intensive to drive. Do you have a certain routine that's sort of worked out for you over the last few years?
Yeah, as I've got older, I've got even more into fitness, to be honest. I lived in the south of France for 7 years and got really into cycling. So I love road cycling for cardio fitness, and obviously I do gym. I enjoy doing some gym work as well. So yeah, I train quite a lot, and I feel better when I do it mentally. I think that's part of why I enjoy it. I feel sharp, and it gives me a bit more confidence going into a race weekend that I'm as well prepared as anybody. and ready to challenge for victory.
So how important is getting lots of track time? I mean, when you went to Formula 4, for example, how important was it before that first race to get as much on-track time as possible?
Yeah, it does definitely helps. I was quite fortunate that I did start testing a Formula Renault sort of 6 months in advance of the first season. So I did the winter series at the end of the season. So I had a few test days, then a winter series, then the next season. So I learnt a lot in 6 months. And definitely going from karting to cars, you need the time to adapt, and you need a good team to advise you and guide you through that process and educate you about the car. Obviously, you've got to learn the circuits. It's just completely different to karting. So I think there is no substitute for track time. The more you can get, the better.
Yeah. Did you have like a mentor that sort of took you through those early stages to get into a single seat?
Not well. I worked a little bit. The team I drove for was Fortec, and Heikki Kovalainen had just finished Formula Renault with that team. So he was around. He lived near the workshop, and he was able to come along to some of the test days and give me some advice. So that was really helpful, because that was his first year of car racing. So he'd just gone from karts to cars and had done what I was about to do. So he could pass on his experiences. And there's another guy called Kelvin Burt, who was a driver coach for Fortec, who he was a former F3 champion and experienced racing driver, so he gave me some good advice as well. So I think that helps certainly at the beginning of your car career.
So back to you and this season. I guess it's been quite a tough start for Audi, just in general at the start of the season. Have you got any aims for the rest of the season? I guess wins are always the...
Yeah, I mean, my aim is always to perform as best as I can perform, and you're obviously limited by the machinery you've got. So for the last 3 years, it's we had one of the best cars, and we're able to win almost every weekend. Was a sort of an opportunity to go for a win. This year, my best so far has been a 6th place, so it's more difficult this year. But to be honest, I try and just maintain the same approach of firstly try and enjoy what I do. I started racing as a kid because I loved it, and as soon as you lose that enjoyment, it's not good. So even if 6th is as good as we can do, we still try and enjoy the process, and just lighten up a bit, not be too tense. Just because you finish in maybe 6th or 8th or 9th, it would be easy to get worried that you're not performing well and get stressed and tense, and that doesn't help. So my background proves that I'm talented, and I don't need to worry about it. I just need to do the best that I can do. And I think for us, the aim is realistically just improving our car. And I think it's mainly setup. The rules have changed this year, so the setup's different to last year, and we're clearly not getting the best out of it compared to the other manufacturers. So I think it's a step-by-step process of developing the setup, and that's also more difficult because we don't have test days. So we're basically testing through the race weekends.
Okay, so it's going to be hard.
You've got to be patient.
So my last proper question was, you've started racing in GT cars a little bit more this year. What would you say is the most amazing car that you've driven in your career? I mean, I guess you've driven quite a few.
The most amazing car I've driven would be a McLaren F1 car. I think it was a V10 2004. Yeah, they're kind of insane and just so quick and so well engineered that you go really quick for a very little sort of effort. Everything's just so nicely engineered that it just works. So that was pretty awesome. But to be fair, I do enjoy driving the GT car. It's pretty quick in a straight line. It's not as quick in the corners as a DTM car, but it's quite tough to drive. So I've enjoyed that challenge of sort of adapting to a new car. And last weekend I got my first win in a GT car, so that's also sort of a fresh challenge, and I'm enjoying that.
Well, that's great. Thank you for doing this interview with me, letting me know a little bit about what I need to be doing in a car, and hopefully it'll work out. Yeah, thank you. There we are, another episode of Behind the Visor done. Massive thank you to Jamie Greene for his time. That was back in Norris Ring, so quite early on in the DTM season. But unfortunately, I haven't had the time to get all of the videos up. I got so much content, and unfortunately, I just don't want to put it up every single day, because I guess that would get a bit repetitive. But I think once a week works out quite well. So once again, thank you to George for editing this. Thank you to John for the camera work. And of course, thank you to Jamie for his time at Audi for helping set it up, and as well the whole everyone basically, BMW, Audi and Mercedes and DTM, just for all of their help over the summer. It really has been fantastic and really helped me out. So thanks everyone once again for watching. I'll see you guys around soon. It's been Alex from Audi. Goodbye.